So, usually when you picture, like, the final hours before a really high-profile firing, you imagine a tense, closed-door meeting.
Right.
Maybe a rapidly cleared-out desk, a quiet exit through a side door.
Yeah, avoiding the press.
Exactly. You certainly don't picture riding in the back of a heavily armored limousine, the one they call the Beast,
Oh, yeah.
just sitting shoulder to shoulder with the President of the United States on the way to the Supreme Court.
I mean, it is an incredibly specific and just remarkably high-stakes environment to spend your final day employed.
Right.
Especially when that limo ride, it presents this really rare one-on-one opportunity to basically plead your case and save your career.
But that is exactly what happened to Attorney General Pam Bondi just before she was abruptly ousted from the administration in early 2026.
It really is wild.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
So welcome back to another deep dive. Today, we're taking you inside this sudden, dramatic shakeup in the U.S. government. Our mission here is to unpack the firing of Pam Bondi, examine the massive vacuum it creates at the Justice Department, and look at what this entire saga tells us about the hard limits of executive power.
Yeah, because we're really looking at a fundamental collision here between the political desires of an executive and, the structural reality of the institutions they're trying to command.
Right.
This is essentially a story about the machinery of government just seizing up entirely.
Totally. So to map out how we got here, we've pulled together a really diverse stack of sources for you. We're looking at analysis from a left-leaning YouTube political commentator named Vaush.
Yeah.
We're also reviewing breaking news coverage from mainstream networks like NBC and CNN, and we're even bringing in a recent lifestyle and news article from People magazine to kind of get a read on the interpersonal dynamics inside the White House.
Which are messy, to say the least.
Very messy. Now, before we jump into the details, I do need to say this right up front. Because these sources contain politically charged opinions from both the left and the right, we want to be really clear. We aren't taking sides or endorsing any of the viewpoints presented.
Absolutely not.
Right. Our job is simply to impartially report the factual claims and ideas contained in the original source material so you can understand the full picture.
Yeah. Our focus is strictly on the mechanics of the situation. We want to understand, the levers being pulled, the structural resistance those levers are meeting, and the fallout when the system just doesn't behave the way the people in charge expect it to.
And the fallout here is objectively wild. I mean, we are going to explore a reported shouting match in the Oval Office, a highly sensitive public message accidentally blasted out on social media.
That one's crazy.
Yeah, and a president apparently so frustrated with sinking poll numbers that he recently berated his 28-year-old pregnant press secretary in front of a room full of reporters.
Just incredible scenes.
Right, so let's unpack the immediate timeline. Bondi goes from riding in the presidential limo on a Tuesday to being completely out of a job by Wednesday night.
Yeah.
How does the ground shift that fast beneath a cabinet member?
Well, proximity to power often creates this illusion of security, right?
Oh, sure.
But the current environment in Washington is just highly volatile. Bondi is actually the second major cabinet firing recently, following the ouster of former DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
Right, which was also a huge deal.
Exactly. And the reporting from CNN and NBC details an administration that is increasingly impatient. When Bondi was called into the Oval Office the evening after that limo ride, the dismissal was not some quiet, mutual parting of ways.
No. The sources describe a highly contentious shouting match. I mean, Bondi reportedly begged the president not to fire her.
Yeah, that's what the reporting says.
But what's so fascinating about this, from a PR standpoint, is the jarring disconnect between the reality of that room and the public statement that followed. I mean, almost immediately after this screaming match, the administration released a statement calling Bondi a wonderful person.
A wonderful person who is doing a good job.
Right. And they even floated the idea of giving her a federal judgeship.
Yeah.
Why the performative praise on the way out? Like, if the frustration was so deep that an attorney general was unceremoniously fired, why issue a statement that makes it sound like an amicable retirement?
Well, it comes down to internal political alliances, really, and base management.
Yeah.
You have to look at the power structure surrounding the president. Bondi has a very close, long-standing relationship with Susie Wiles, the White House chief of staff.
Okay.
Yeah, they both came up through the trenches of Florida politics together. They're tight.
So it's basically like a CEO firing a crucial department head, but putting out a glowing press release praising their, innovative vision simply because the company's biggest investor was the one who recommended them for the job.
Exact.
You're managing the investor, not the departing employee.
That is the exact dynamic. You do not want to completely alienate your chief of staff by publicly humiliating her longtime ally.
Right.
And notice that when Kristi Noem was fired, there was absolutely no such generosity in the public messaging.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, the administration was desperately trying to prevent a media narrative that the cabinet was just in a state of chaos. Fox News actually broke the Bondi story by explicitly claiming there was no bad blood between them.
Which our YouTube source, Vaush, just completely laughs at.
Oh, yeah?
He points out how transparently desperate it looks when literally every other reporter in Washington has sources confirming a screaming match. The PR filter is on, but the reality is fracturing. Which brings us to the core question here. What was the actual breaking point? Like, what generated that level of fury from the executive branch?
Well, the reporting points to a massive, just insurmountable expectations gap. Trump's primary frustration was that Bondi was failing to aggressively prosecute his perceived political adversaries.
Right.
The names mentioned most often are former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Okay.
The expectation was that the DOJ would act swiftly to deliver the retribution that had been essentially promised to the political base.
Which totally gives context to one of the most revealing details in our stack.
Yeah.
Trump apparently tried to send a private direct message to Bondi on Truth Social about this exact issue, but accidentally posted it publicly.
Yeah, the accidental public DM.
It literally started with Pam and went on to urge her to move faster on indicting his enemies, asking, why people were laughing at them and why these adversaries weren't already in jail.
It's a really rare, unfiltered look at executive frustration.
Definitely.
But the structural analysis provided by the Vaush source offers a critical insight into why Bondi failed to deliver. Vaush argues that her failure wasn't a lack of willingness or, loyalty.
Right.
She failed because the American justice system is highly federalized and relentlessly decentralized.
But wait, hold on. She was the Attorney General of the United States.
Yeah.
She was the top cop in the country.
Yeah.
Doesn't that title inherently mean she has the ultimate authority to simply, override state courts and bring these cases to trial?
Well, that assumes the top cop is the only cop, right?
Sure.
Or that the federal government sits at the top of this strict chain of command that dictates all law in the country. But that is a fundamental misunderstanding of American legal architecture.
Interesting.
Vaush makes this fascinating historical comparison here. He says, if you look at rapid authoritarian shifts in places like Hungary or periods in 20th century Germany,
Okay.
they succeed because the justice system in those nations is centralized.
Right. There's just one system.
Exactly. The executive takes power and can instantly pass sweeping laws, dictate prosecutions, replace judges at will, because there is only one central apparatus. But the U.S. system was explicitly engineered to resist that kind of top-down control.
So the inefficiency is intentional. It's like a feature, not a bug.
Precisely. The vast majority of laws that govern daily life and the vast majority of criminal prosecutions happen at the state and local levels.
Right.
Letitia James, for example, operates under New York state law. The federal DOJ has virtually no jurisdictional leverage over a state attorney general prosecuting state-level crimes in state courts.
Wow.
Furthermore, even at the federal level, an attorney general cannot simply declare someone guilty and put them in a cell.
Right. They have to go through the process.
Exactly. They have to find a specific federal statute that was violated. They have to impanel a grand jury of regular citizens. They have to present evidence, secure an indictment, and then fight it out in front of an independent judiciary where the judge has lifetime tenure and does not answer to the president.
Okay, so it sounds like Trump was trying to navigate a massive, heavily compartmentalized battleship as if it were a nimble speedboat.
That's a great way to put it.
Like he was trying to order a pizza at a hardware store. He was demanding a product instant political prosecutions, that the structural machinery of the United States is fundamentally not built to serve on demand.
Yes.
And because Bondi couldn't force the system to give him that pizza, she took the fall.
The institutional friction was just too great. Vaush describes the U.S. institutional framework as this battered fort. The marble walls might be crumbling and they might look archaic, but they're still standing.
Right.
They act as a massive bureaucratic buffer against any executive trying to orchestrate an instant, centralized sweep of political opponents. Bondi was given an operationally impossible mandate.
Okay, but to be entirely fair to the narrative, It wasn't solely the friction with the legal system that doomed her tenure.
No, it wasn't.
She also committed a massive, self-inflicted, unforced error regarding a highly sensitive cultural topic.
The Epstein binder.
The Epstein binders. This is where the story shifts from institutional gridlock to a sheer public relations disaster. NBC News actually referred to this as the original sin of her time in office.
Yeah, it really set the tone.
Early in the administration, Bondi went on Fox News and claimed she had the highly anticipated Epstein files sitting right on her desk, and she promised to release them.
It was an immediate escalation of expectations. She invited right-wing influencers into the White House and physically handed them binders full of documents.
Which is wild.
Yeah, the spectacle was completely designed to generate maximum internet buzz.
But the binders were essentially useless, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they were filled with old, heavily redacted documents that had already been circulating in the public sphere.
Exactly.
There were no new bombshells. And ultimately, the DOJ quietly closed the files without taking any further action. So I guess my question is, why create a massive spectacle out of something you can't deliver on? Like, it feels like writing a check your department literally can't cash. What is the actual legal mechanism that prevents an attorney general from just dumping all those files onto the internet?
Well, the mechanism preventing that is the same structural wall we just discussed. The strict rules of federal criminal procedure.
Okay.
Much of the unreleased material surrounding a case like that involves grand jury testimony or evidence pertaining to minors.
Right. Highly sensitive stuff.
Exactly. Under federal law, specifically Rule 6E regarding grand jury secrecy, an attorney general physically cannot just grab a box of protected files and hand them to an influencer.
Oh, wow.
A federal judge has to order those specific documents unsealed. If an attorney general bypasses a judge and leaks sealed grand jury material, they are committing a federal crime themselves.
So the political calculus was entirely short-term. She just wanted to throw red meat to the May base early in the term to prove her loyalty,
Right.
knowing full well, or at least she should have known, that she legally couldn't back it up.
And it backfired spectacularly on multiple fronts. She deeply angered the conservative base, who quickly realized they were handed yesterday's newspaper and, felt lied to.
Yeah.
Simultaneously, she alienated the survivor community, who felt their immense trauma was just being exploited for a cheap political photo op.
Which is terrible.
It is. The backlash was so severe that Congress actually had to step in and force the DOJ to produce a limited set of the actual real files. And in a very telling moment, Susie Wild,
For chief of staff.
chief of staff and Bondi's closest ally, she admitted in an interview with Vanity Fair that the DOJ completely whiffed on the Epstein issue.
Wow. When your strongest ally in the building uses the word whiffed in a national magazine,
Yeah.
the writing is on the wall.
Yeah, it's over.
She fails to bypass the structural realities of the legal system, and she bungles the biggest cultural lightning rod of the year. But this systemic frustration doesn't just stay isolated inside the Justice Department. When a leader hits a wall with their major initiatives, that pressure bleeds out into the daily operations of the entire administration.
Oh, completely. We see that pressure manifesting in the broader polling data. According to the Vouch source, the administration is facing severe macroeconomic headwinds.
Okay.
Trump's overall approval rating has dropped to roughly 35 or 36%. But more critically, his approval rating on the economy has sunk to a dismal 31%.
Oof. 31% on the economy is a brutal metric for any incumbent. It signals deep systemic dissatisfaction.
It really does. And historically, when systemic issues like a sluggish economy or a resistant justice system prevent an executive from achieving their goals, the natural instinct is to deflect blame downward.
Right.
It is much easier to point a finger at your staff than to admit the limitations of your own power.
Which brings us to the surreal situation involving Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary.
Yeah.
She is 28 years old, currently pregnant, and holds the title of the youngest White House press secretary in history.
Right.
And according to People magazine, on March 31st, Trump is in the Oval Office signing an executive order. The press corps is in the room.
Yeah.
He starts venting about his media coverage, claiming he gets between 93 and 97% bad press.
Right.
Then he turns directly to Leavitt, right to her face in front of the cameras, and says, "You're doing a terrible job."
And then he openly pondered to the room, "Shall we keep her? I think we'll keep her."
Just, wow. I mean, the White House later gave a statement insisting it was just a joke.
Sure.
But this doesn't exist in a vacuum. He has a history of making, like, odd, objectifying comments about her, previously telling an interviewer that her face and those lips move like a machine gun.
Yeah, that was a very strange comment.
Right. And just days before this Oval Office incident, the news agency AFP deleted a photo of Leave It with her son and a turkey.
It's a turkey photo.
Yet the reporting suggests the White House found the photo unflattering and pressured them to take it down, though AFP officially claims it was just a quality control issue.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like yelling at the local weather forecaster because it's raining on your parade. Is this just venting or a real strategy? Because a press secretary doesn't control the macroeconomic realities driving a 31% economic approval rating.
Well, they don't control the reality, but they are entirely responsible for the packaging of that reality.
Okay, fair.
Levitt is the face of the administration's messaging, just as Bondi was the face of its legal retribution. When the product fails to materialize, whether that product is a booming economy or political indictments, the faces associated with that product are heavily scrutinized or just swapped out.
That leaves us looking at the immediate aftermath. You swap out the face of the Justice Department, but you still have to run the institution.
Right.
There is now a massive echoing vacuum at the top of the DOJ. Who steps into that void?
In the short term, Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche is stepping in as the interim AG. Blanche is a fiercely loyal former personal attorney for the president. And what's notable here, as highlighted by CNN, is that Blanche recently gave a highly unusual speech at CPAC, the Conservative Political Action Conference.
Wait, really? The DOJ is traditionally supposed to maintain a strict, impenetrable wall of separation from partisan political events.
Yes.
Speaking of CPAC completely shatters that norm.
Exactly. And he used that platform to essentially announce that anyone who had ever investigated or brought charges against Donald Trump had been removed from the DOJ.
Oh, wow.
It was a clear public signal that he views the department as an instrument of political will. As for a permanent replacement, the name currently gaining traction is Lee Zeldin, who is presently serving at the EPA. However, the reporting from both CNN and NBC stresses that getting anyone confirmed by the Senate is going to be an absolute gauntlet.
Because the senators have developed what one reporter called muscle memory. They have spent the last few years watching exactly how the DOJ is being utilized. They are acutely aware of the Epstein files disaster, noting that the genie is well out of the bottle on that front.
Yeah, they won't forget that.
They know exactly what the administration expects from this role.
Furthermore, the administration will likely demand a nominee who promises, behind closed doors, that they will never recuse themselves from any investigation, regardless of glaring conflicts of interest.
Right.
That puts any potential nominee in an incredibly precarious position before the Senate Judiciary Committee. They have to pledge loyalty to the executive while simultaneously convincing the Senate they will uphold the independent rule of law.
Good luck with that. And to compound the chaos of this confirmation battle, the sources casually drop a staggering statistic. The Department of Justice is currently down 7,000 lawyers.
Yeah.
I mean, we need to pause on that because 7,000 missing lawyers isn't just a matter of empty desks.
No, it's not.
What does that actually mean for the functioning of the government?
Well, it means the gears of the justice system basically grind to a halt. The DOJ is responsible for reviewing civil rights cases, managing antitrust lawsuits, handling federal appellate work, coordinating with local jurisdictions on massive federal crimes.
Right.
If you are an attorney general ordered by the president to launch an unprecedented, incredibly complex political prosecution against a savvy opponent like Letitia James, you need an army of top-tier legal minds to draft the airtight briefs required to survive the scrutiny of federal judges. You simply cannot execute sweeping, complex legal maneuvers with a skeleton crew.
So let me get this straight. The job description essentially requires you to execute political maneuvers that the legal system is structurally designed to resist. If you fail to do the impossible, you are publicly humiliated and fired. And on top of that, you are walking into an office missing 7,000 of the very staff members you would need to even attempt the job.
Yeah.
Who on earth takes that role right now?
That is the defining paradox of this administration's second term. They wanted to avoid a revolving door of staff, but the demands being placed on the cabinet require a level of absolute loyalty that is just incompatible with the structural realities of confirming a qualified, Senate-approved candidate.
Right.
They find themselves trapped in a cycle of high turnover because the system keeps rejecting the demands.
Bringing this all together, what is the core takeaway for you, the listener? We are looking at an ousted attorney general, a highly scrutinized press secretary, a hollowing out of federal lawyers, and an executive deeply frustrated by the levers of his own government.
The crucial takeaway is that you are watching a real-time, historic stress test of American institutions.
Yeah.
This deep dive reveals that the structure of a government, its bureaucracies, its federalized state laws, its separation of powers, can actively and successfully resist the political will of the people running it. Pam Bondi didn't fail because she lacked loyalty. She failed because the U.S. justice system operates as a massive decentralized buffer against unilateral executive action. The friction between what the executive branch demands and what the institutions actually allow is what is driving the cabinet turnover, the sinking poll numbers, and the desperate PR stunts.
The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do, moving slowly and requiring consensus.
Exactly.
I want to leave you with a final thought to chew on today. If the decentralized nature of the U.S. justice system, the local courts, the state laws, the grand juries, is the primary mechanism preventing a single executive from enacting immediate top-down political retribution. What happens if a future administration figures out how to bypass those local and state-level fail-safes entirely?
Oh, wow.
What happens if a future executive looks at the firing of Pam Bondi, learns that you cannot force the current system to do your bidding, and instead finds a way to circumvent the structural framework entirely rather than fighting it?
Yeah.
Something to really think about.
It is a sobering question about the future of institutional resilience, and one that constitutional scholars will undoubtedly be analyzing for years to come.
Indeed they will. That is all for today's deep dive. The next time you find yourself stuck in an awkward, silent car ride, just take a deep breath and be glad you aren't sitting in the back of a heavily armored limousine trying to save your job. Thanks for joining us, and as always, keep questioning what you read. See you next time.